Let me greet you, Ms. Johnson. How are you?
I'm well, Chair. Thank you. And yourself?
Greetings to you and your team.
Thank you.
Honorable Skosana, would you like her to introduce her team so that your fears are...
Yeah, no, Chair, I think we must know, otherwise there's a lot of people we don't know here today. Maybe they are like the other ones who were not supposed to be here.
Just to allay the fears of the members that you do not have any unwarranted person.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Member, we also had asked for accreditation. On my right is Mebulelwa Makeke. She is the Executive Head of Communications in the National Prosecuting Authority. I have counsel, junior counsel behind. I have Advocate Mtunzi Maga, who is the Special Director and Head of Legal Affairs at the NPA, and I have senior counsel behind me. But that is the ambit of the NPA team that accompanies the ID this morning. Do you need the details of the counsels?
No, thank you. Through you, Chair. They say there's NPA. Yeah, thank you. We'll see them as well. Thank you, Chair.
What is the name of the senior counsel?
If I can ask my counsels to introduce themselves, Chair.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair. My name is Apla. My surname is Bodlani. Thank you.
Tsietsi Ramatsekisa.
Thank you so much. Honorable Nomvalo.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to let you know that Council Ramatsekisa was my lecturer in the University of Fort Hare. He was lecturing me the law of evidence, a module.
So you want to tell us that you are the evidence of his work?
No, Chair, he's telling you that he's implicated, so he must be out.
Okay. Honorable Pambo, good morning. Thank you so much. The staff of Parliament, we greet you, and the support staff of all political parties. Good morning to all of you. We are going to commence with today's proceedings. Our witness today is Ms. Johnson from Idac. The senior counsel will come and confirm that the person appearing before us is appropriate. Let me go to the next item and give you apologies. The apology that we have today is the apology of the Chief Whip, Honorable Ntuli, who is still unable to join us due to commitments in Parliament. Honorable Vessels, we have said that he was going to be away for 2 weeks. The 2 weeks period has not expired. For sure it will be expiring tomorrow. We hope to have his return next week. Can I check with you, honorable members, if there is any amongst you who wants to register apologies? Honorable Kusela.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Ngola is going to be joining us later. Thank you.
Do we have apology from Honorable Sols? Okay, let's hope he will join the proceedings later. SC, may you please confirm that the person appearing before us is the person that you and us expected to be here today.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, Honorable Members, Ms. Johnson, everyone in the room, colleagues. Yeah, I can confirm, Honorable Chair, that that is indeed Ms. Advocate Anthea Johnson, the head of Idac. Thank you.
Thank you so much, SC. Let me move to the next item, which is the administration of oath on our witness. Good morning once again, Ms. Johnson. Before I administer oath, allow me to read the following to you. That you have been invited to appear before this ad hoc committee, which investigate allegations made by Lieutenant General Ntlanhla Mkhwanazi, and that you have been invited to provide information in relation to the committee's oversight work. The committee is investigating, amongst others, alleged unlawful disbursement of the political killings task team, otherwise known as the PKTT or the NPKTT, and further, the alleged moratorium on the filling of vacancies within the South African Police Services, and alleged corrupt relationships between senior leadership within SAPS and members of the public, as well as political interference in the work of the SAPS. In extending this invitation, the ad hoc committee chairperson has indicated that you may provide such information to the committee if you so wish under oath in terms of the powers, privileges, and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act 2004. Please be informed that by law you are required to answer fully and satisfactorily all questions lawfully put to you, or to produce any document that you are required to produce in connection with the subject matter of the inquiry, notwithstanding the fact that the answer or the document could incriminate you or expose you to criminal or civil proceedings or even damages. Ms. Johnson, you are, however, protected in that evidence given under oath or affirmation before a House or Committee of Parliament may not be used against you in any court or place outside Parliament, except in criminal proceedings concerning a charge of perjury or a charge relating to the evidence or document required in these proceedings. Please be aware that in terms of Section 17(2) of the Powers, Privileges and Immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act, a person who willfully furnishes a House or Committee of Parliament with information or makes a statement before it which is false or misleading, commits an offense and is liable to a fine or imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years. You are required to take an oath or affirm that the evidence you are about to give is truthful, and so you may elect whether you take oath or affirmation.
Honorable Chair, I'll take the oath.
So, thank you so much. You have decided or elected to take oath. I will read and you will follow me. You will start by saying I, and you state your full names.
I, Andrea Johnson,
Swear that the evidence I shall give
swear that the evidence that I shall give
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
And so help me God.
And so help me God.
Thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to you, SC, and I now allocate you between now and 13 hours. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I will, as usual, try my level best to conclude by 1300 hours. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, Advocate Johnson, for your appearance today and also for your cooperation, your full cooperation and that of your team, both at the NPA and your council. On a lighter note, your senior counsel, the last time I encountered him was in a boxing matter. In a boxing matter when he was acting for the boxing promoters and I was acting for the previous Minister of Sport. So I hope it's not a scene set to some kind of a sparring that we're going to engage in today. Advocate Johnson, you are the head of the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption. We'll refer to it as Idac throughout the day, or those questions will be asked of you as head of Idac, and you were appointed by the President as the head of Idac on the 1st of March in terms of the National Prosecuting Authority Act. There was an amendment subsequent to your appointment, amendment to the Idac Act in relation to its independence. Just briefly tell us about that.
Chair, thank you. I was appointed on the 1st of March 2022. At the time, it was not called the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption. It was called the Investigating Directorate, having been created in terms of a proclamation in April of 2019. Fast forward to 2024, and through a parliamentary process, the National Prosecuting Authority Amendment Act 10 of 2024 was passed. It therefore created Idac, Investigating Directorate Against Corruption, as a permanent entity, which came into effect then on the 19th of August 2024.
Thank you. Now, the events of 6 July 2025, now well known, when Lieutenant General Kunazi had a media briefing. You obviously by now know about that, and that's given rise to the appointment of the ad hoc committee by Parliament, the National Assembly, to inquire into a number of allegations that he made. We are hoping that during the course of your testimony you can assist us on at least 3 aspects of the terms of reference of this committee. The one I know we briefly touched on it, but the 121 case dockets, there was some interaction on that aspect, but more pointedly, paragraph 4.1.12 of the terms of reference, which relates to prosecutorial conduct and the relationship between Idac and the PKTT, that's the Political Killings Task Team, including whether Idac or any of its officials unlawfully interfered in police investigations or exceeded its mandate. And then item 4.1.18, which is to scrutinize the interagency coordination among SEPs, Crime Intelligence, Idac/the NPA, Correctional Services, Metro Police, and the legal basis for the directives affecting the PKTT, which is a latter part of that terms of reference. So, but before we get into those specifics, perhaps just talk to us about your experience, your academic qualifications, your appointment as an advocate of the High Court of South Africa, and then your subsequent involvement within the criminal justice system, your initial experiences as a prosecutor, as a district prosecutor, and then your elevation subsequently to a senior state prosecutor, state advocate within the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Thank you, Chair. I do, in terms of the academic qualifications, hold a B.Juris degree and an LLB degree. I would hope that no one wants to know when I got those. They are extremely old. But in 2007, I also attempted and completed in that year a diploma in criminal justice and forensic auditing at the University of Johannesburg. It was part-time. I have various short courses that you complete during the course and scope of your employment, from project management, coaching and mentoring, money laundering, corruption, all of the relevant courses to enable you to do your work, Chair. I started prosecuting on the 1st of June, 1996, at the Magistrates Court in Alberton. I was then moved to the Regional Court in Germiston early in 1998. But in the Magistrates Court, we did the usual matters that are still done, from assault. Unfortunately, back in the day, I also had to do traffic matters. I also had to deal with maintenance issues. And got in between spouses and or partners about whose rights it were to pay for the upkeep of their children. But it was as basic as that. I was in the regional court for a very short time, where more serious offenses from cash in transit heists, business robberies, murders, and so on were done. And on the 1st of June 1998, Chair, I started as a state advocate at the then Attorney General's office in Johannesburg under then Attorney General De Vries. The National Prosecuting Authority came into being in 1998. And in December of 99, I was then promoted to Senior State Advocate and joined the Directorate Special Operations, colloquially called the Scorpions. I was there till the doors
Who
closed.
was the head of the Scorpions then?
At the time, in terms of the region, it was Advocate Gerrie Nel, and the Deputy National Director in charge was Advocate Leonard McCarthy, but I reported directly to Advocate Gerrie Nel as head of office. I remained there till the doors closed 6 July 2009. However, in that time, on the 1st of April 2004, I became a Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, and around about April or May of 2006, I became a Senior Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions, which position I held up until the 28th of February 2022. And I then became the Investigating Director on the 1st of March 2022. In that time, I held various portfolios as a Deputy Director, overseeing prosecutions and investigations in the DSO. I was also at the DPP office and fell under what was called the organized crime component, where we dealt with organized crime matters. And from February 2019 till the end of February 2022, I was the National Coordinator Organized Crime at the NPA's head office.
Just the period when you were with the DSO, as you say, colloquially referred to as the Scorpions. Just discuss with us some of your experiences there and perhaps some of the more prominent matters or cases you became involved in as a prosecutor.
Honorable Chair and members, when the DSO started initially, it started with organized crime matters. And I think during the course of late 2003, what was then called ITSIO, which was the Investigating Directorate Serious Economic Offenses, also came over to the DSO. So the DSO then ended up doing what the Hawks now do, serious organized crime, serious complex, serious commercial crime, serious corruption matters. And that became the ambit of the work that the DSO did. I was mainly involved in organized crime matters, but later on became involved in the serious corruption matters that were done at the DSO. There, much like what Idac operates now, we had deputy directors who would lead a team, and the team would be comprised of advocates of various rankings, as well as criminal investigators. And we would form a team that would then deal with the matters that were allocated to us. I myself dealt with various matters, not just the corruption matters, but when it came to one of the more prominent matters, one of the matters that I dealt with together with Advocate Herinel was the investigation and prosecution of corruption allegations against the late Jackie Celebi, who at the time was the National Police Commissioner and the first African head of Interpol. And we saw that matter through to its finality. But in that time, Chair, the DSO was disbanded. And so in July 2009, as with most advocates, we were given an opportunity to choose which Director of Public Prosecution's office you would like to work in. Advocate Nell and I, who are Pretoria-based, chose the office of the DPP Pretoria, also because in October of that year, the matter for trial in the Celebi matter had been set down. And so practically it made sense that we would be in our home base and would be able to deal with the prosecution. And that prosecution was then finalized as it was with the guilty verdict being passed against the late Mr. Celebi, together with a term of imprisonment of 15 years. I've dealt over the years with other matters, and I wasn't married only to the corruption matters. We also dealt with some of the murder matters, conspiracies to commit murder, one of those being the matter of athlete Oscar Pistorius. Advocate Nell finished off or chose to leave the National Prosecuting Authority before that matter went back on appeal, and I finalized that matter, and we dealt with various matters over the years. So my experience in terms of matters was mainly organized crime and then into the corruption field.
Have you always been based in Pretoria? You were born in KZN, is it?
That is correct, Chair. My first prosecuting stint on the 1st of June 1996 was at the Magistrates Court in Alberton. For purposes of correctness of the record, I did prosecute on a contract basis in Scottburgh in November, December 95, and January of 96, and then the contract finished, and then I applied to the then Department of Justice and waited for a position, which then became Alberton on the East Rand. I hadn't, other than those 2 or 3 months, prosecuted anywhere in KZN.
Just talk to us briefly about your formative years growing up in KZN.
Honorable Chair, I grew up in rural KZN. It's unfortunate that much of what I experienced then, some of our people still do experience now, which is the lack of running water and ablution facilities. That was the story of the growing up, walking to school at great distances on our rural roads. And there was a time when, fortunately, we were then able to catch a bus and travel great distance to school and back. My only friends at the time, and more so because my late dad was a policeman. In the apartheid era, us as black families were not allowed to be involved in politics, so there was no talk of politics. I had absolutely no political knowledge. I was not politically savvy at all. But we knew that as black people, we stayed together. So we were the only Indian family in that area, and then we had 3 African families, the Hlomayos, Kiliza, the Keles, and those were our best friends. So I grew up playing with my friends, waited for one another when we came from school. I had a favorite meal at the time, which Mam Kiliza used to make, which was samp, I think called Mnusho more now. The kids there had favorite meals at our home. We all also, unfortunately, had to walk to a communal area at the police station to collect water. And so myself and my friends would, without tubs and buckets, get to the communal area, carry buckets and tubs of water on our heads, walk back down, full up. So I had a very humble rural upbringing, and those were my friends. That is how we grew up. Unfortunately, though, when we went to school, we went to different schools. But after hours, after school, on weekends, that was us, that was family. And that is how we socialized, and that is really my upbringing.
And you also became fluent in isiZulu.
Yes, sir, I did. And if you would allow me, Chair, I taught myself to read. And the one thing I had to read, everywhere I went, I saw a sign. And the sign said, Abahamba kulendlela bayoboshwa. And I needed to know what that meant, because coming or being brought up in rural KZN, there were many farmers, and as we walked those paths from school, that was a very prominent sign. I also had to learn Afrikaans because there was this thing with the dog that said, pas op vir die honde. So that was my first self-taught Zulu speaking and reading. But I'm fluent in Zulu because part of the respect was we taught, myself and my siblings taught my friends English, they taught us isiZulu, and that is how I grew up. Also had to learn Afrikaans, of course, because given what it was at the time, our schools were bilingual, and we had to know English and Afrikaans, because if you failed Afrikaans, you also failed the entire exam. Not just if you failed English, you failed the exam.
Yeah, I think that was the issue that gave rise to, or one of the issues was the language issue, the compulsory Afrikaans that you had to do, even as a black person. Anyway, so that was a political education, I suppose, on its own. But just fast forward, so you obviously had to move to the urban areas, go to high school or senior secondary school, go to university, and gain those degrees that you
Correct,
referred to.
not as urban. I don't know if you call a little one-street village an urban area, but yes, I was able to go to high school in a different area, and I then attended the University of Durban-Westville as it was at the time for both my qualifications.
Thank you, Advocate Johnson. Now, just to go to Idac more specifically, first established in 2019, and I think, as you pointed out, was created or established by a presidential proclamation, and that arose really from the findings and the recommendations of the Zondo Commission.
Correct, Chair. The commission had commenced in 2018, and so that gave rise to the birth of the investigating directorate at the time.
And when it was still known as the investigating directorate, that was headed by Advocate Herman Cronje at the time.
Correct, Chair, up until I took office on the 1st of March, 2022.
So subsequent to 2019, your appointment in 2022, and the amendment to the NPA Act, the mandate changed. So just tell us briefly about that, the initial mandate of the investigating directorate and the mandate now of Idac.
So the initial mandate of the investigating directorate dealt mainly with the commissions of inquiry, to with the party commission that looked into irregularities into the PIC, the Nugent Commission of Inquiry looking into alleged irregularities within the South African Revenue Service, and then the State Capture Commission, colloquially the Zondo Commission. In terms of Idac, the mandate seeks to also then deal with serious and high-profile corruption matters. also over and beyond the statutory offences one is allowed to look at, POCTATARA, PRECA, PFMA, MFMA, POCA contraventions, and then the common law contraventions, fraud, theft, forgery, uttering, and offences that in the main relate to dishonesty, Chair.
And subsequently, the mandate broadened to corruption more generally.
That is
But-
correct.
And would you be dealing with more complex cases of corruption?
That is correct, Chair. We are expected to deal with the more complex corruption matters, but that also brings with it, if I may add, in terms of the POCA, which is the Prevention Organized Crime Act, there are also our money laundering obligations, and so Idac played a very prominent role in ensuring complex investigations, also of money laundering towards the FATF and towards us dealing with the grey listing issues.
Do you only act on matters referred to you, Idac, or do you have some authority or powers to, as it were, that Latin phrase, mero moto, on your own? Do you take on corruption matters just because you were told about it or read about it in the media? How does that work?
Unfortunately, Chair, the entry into Idac in terms of matters is very restricted. Yes, those matters that arise out of the 3 commissions, we are able to look into those matters. I would just like to clarify, Honourable Chair and members, that notwithstanding, we do divide up the work also with the DPCI, known as the Hawks, and what we do before we authorize new state capture investigations. We also check with them if perhaps they haven't already commenced investigations in matters that arise out of the State Capture Commission report and findings. Where they do, and they have already commenced, we hand over then a matter that can go in there and falls within the ambit of that specific matter. So we do engage with the Hawks. In fact, there's a weekly meeting that the head of investigations in Idac attends with the Hawks so that we are able to synergize new matters and where we are with old matters, and whether or not there might be something in either or agency that the other might need in terms of assistance. But when it comes to matters coming into Idac, even corruption matters, they have to come in through a referral, which is a Section 27 referral in terms of the NPA Act. And the only other way it comes in is if they are referred to the ID and Idac through the Office of the National Director in terms of Section 28 of the NPA Act. So had it not been for, do you have those dockets, give them to us, this is corruption. We cannot do that, and we haven't done that. And we cannot also go to the Hawks and say, we want to do this, so give us yours. What does happen is, where the Hawks also have started a matter and they feel that it might be best placed to deal with it in Idac, there is then that handover and or joint working process. But you cannot just go take a matter. We can't just take over a case, project, or docket.
Yeah, I think that explanation is important, and I'm sure will be expanded upon later. But the director of priority crimes, the Hawks, they deal with priority crimes. You deal with serious corruption cases, which would also indicate, or us as members of the public would expect to be dealt with as a priority crime. So you're saying the way you deal with it is you have a regular interaction with the Hawks.
That is correct, Chair, because the Hawks also have a mandate to deal with serious corruption matters. And so that there's no duplication or overlap. That weekly engagement seeks to ensure that that doesn't happen. But there's interagency working where we actually do share resources if they are needed. What Idac is also able to do, Chair, is if there is a matter in our space but there's a capability that also lies within the DPCI. We are able to designate those persons into an authorized Idac investigation. So a DPCI investigator who's not seconded to Idac can actually be allocated to a matter within Idac through a designation process.
And we know now from the evidence and from the organizational design structure of the South African Police Services that there are also specialized units. And I think all of us now understand why these special purpose units have been established: murder and robbery, abduction, kidnappings, organized crime, mine killings in the mines, zamazamas, and a whole host of specialist task teams, which would also indicate priority and certainly serious crimes. So do you interact at all with those units? And of course, one of those units is the political killings task team unit or task team. Do you interact with those units, or do you act with the national commissioner and his deputies who are heading those units?
To clarify, Chair, in my earlier days as a prosecutor, yes, the specialized task team that I would have engaged with was what was called the SVC, Serious Violent Crime. They mostly dealt with the cash in transit matters, business robberies, and so on. So that was the one specialized unit most of us dealt with. And that would have been the case even throughout my time at head office as a National Coordinator Organized Crime. We dealt with the various agencies that dealt with. So within the detectives, for example, as is with the Hawks, they also had specialized teams. They didn't call them task teams, but they had dedicated teams that would work with extortions, dealt with essential infrastructure theft, which was quite an issue. So we worked with teams that dealt with specialized matters. But the only specialized task team I did deal with was the Serious Violent Crime Unit at the time. When I became the head of Idac, and Idac itself, we only engaged then in terms of law enforcement in the main with the DPCI, which is the Hawks, with the South African Revenue Services, the Financial Intelligence Center, and we also deal with Treasury when we need to, have engagements with the Auditor General's office, but we haven't had to work with the PKTT because that has nothing to do with our mandate at all. So there's no engagements with them or the work that they do, Chair.
Okay. We'll come to the PKTT a bit later. Just before we go any further, tell us about your office, the makeup of your office, how many people are employed, in which sections, and perhaps also an idea of the demographics in that office.
During a break, I'll be able to perhaps just give the junior counsel something to print out. But as an overview, the staff contingent as of yesterday, which includes myself, are 128. And that includes the investigating director, the head of investigations, 2 chief criminal investigators, 4 chief financial investigators, 4 project managers. And then across the board, we have senior and junior financial investigators, criminal investigators, as well as data analysts, and then senior and junior advocates. So it's a total of 128, 63 female, 65 male.
And the demographic breakdown?
I'll be able to, during a break, I do have it on my laptop. I will look at it and I will revert with the exact numbers of the demographics.
Okay.
And I would assume, you'll correct me, Chair, you are asking about the racial demographics of the office. That's not an issue. I will present it. I do have it on my laptop. I will just want to give you the exact numbers.
And how are people, personnel in Idac, how are they appointed? Who appoints them?
So, Chair, there's nothing unique about Idac in terms of the recruitment process. Bear in mind that we are a business unit in the National Prosecuting Authority, which in itself is a program of the Department of Justice. So the recruitment policy in Idac is the recruitment policy of government as we follow it through the Department of Justice. You all would have to identify vacancies and positions to be filled. And these are then advertised. They are not advertised only internally, they are advertised externally. There's a screening process that gets done outside of my office. It is all corporate services that would do those. Persons are screened to see that they fulfilled the requirements, that they correctly filled in. We still do what they call the Z83 form as a form of employment in government. All of those are done. There's pre-screening, there's shortlisting. And in terms of the shortlisting, demographics play a role, both in terms of gender and color equity. Those are part of the equity principles of the NPA as well as the Department of Justice. So all of those factors are taken into account. A panel is pre-approved. We've got to send an approval for a panel. Also, it has to be constituted in terms of both race, gender, as well as qualifications. You cannot have, for example, myself chairing interviews for a data analyst. I might be out of my depth, but I could chair the interview for an advocate or a deputy director of public prosecutions or the criminal investigators. So we take all of that into account. Our panels are sent through to the NPA's head office, and depending on the level of appointment, some, if not most of those panels also have to be approved in the Office of the Director General of DOJ, as the Director General is the accounting officer of the NPA. And then those panels constitute themselves. Shortlisted candidates are then interviewed, go through a two-pronged interview process, which has also become part of what government requires. Ordinarily, in these kinds of positions, you just had an interview with panelists asking questions and scoring candidates. But where we have, especially the criminal and financial investigators as well as advocates, we have part two of the interview process, where they are either given case theories, scenarios, etc., and they have to then answer those. So there's a written portion, and also a question that seeks to determine their level of ethics and integrity in the way they engage with the question. So it's not a different recruitment process. It is a recruitment process that's followed by the department.
Do you, from time to time, chair some of these panels?
Honorable Chair and members, yes, I have. I have chaired panels for deputy directors of public prosecutions. I have chaired the panel for chief criminal investigators, chief financial investigators. I think that's, could have been the head of investigations, but I think that is it. I might have assisted where, oh yes, I do recall, I think late last year, ordinarily when you do the positions for state advocate or senior state advocate, we usually have a deputy director of public prosecutions chair. The deputy director from my office who was assigned to chair fell ill, quite ill, and so in order not to interrupt that process, we sought permission, as we do, that I take over as chair, but it was for a prosecution position.
Now, your husband is also employed in Idac?
No.
No, not at all.
My husband is at Crime Intelligence, and he's been there from 7 July 2009, when the DSO disbanded. And so many of the investigators, collectors, operational support were also moved. Many of them then were moved to either state security and or crime intelligence, and that is where he found himself by virtue of the allocation of personnel given the disbandment of the DSO. He was never at Idac.
So, my apologies, I was mistaken, I apologize. So your husband obviously knows and works under Lieutenant General Kumalo, who's the head of crime intelligence.
That is correct, Chair. If I remember correctly, Lieutenant General Kumalo became the divisional commissioner. It would have been late 2022, but my husband had been at crime intelligence from July 2009. But having to work under Lieutenant General Kumalo as the divisional commissioner would have been from around about December or so of 2022, whichever date the divisional commissioner became the divisional commissioner. But he had been at crime intelligence well before then. My husband, I mean.
Now, in the complex, serious work that you do as Idac, you would require more often than not intelligence which would be collected by crime intelligence, is it, and shared with you, or do you have your own crime intelligence section?
So, Chair, we do not utilize crime intelligence unless crime intelligence refers a crime threat analysis to us, which is part of the job that they do across the board for law enforcement. So if they had to compile a crime threat analysis that dealt with high-level corruption, organized corruption, and then in terms of the Section 27 referred it to Idac, we would have looked at it. They hadn't done that to date, but we do not utilize intelligence, Chair. That's where the DSO got into trouble, thinking that intelligence is perhaps something we can do. Idac will collect information that it can get, and we therefore use the subpoena process in terms of Section 28 that allows us to gather information that we would need to conduct our investigations. So it can be anything from the banks, cell phone service providers, from the revenue service, from the police, and from any person and or entity or agency that may hold the information that we require, and then we conduct our investigations. But there's no intelligence gathering at Idac.
But when you issue the Section 28 subpoena, it could or may involve the provision of crime intelligence, which could be restricted or confidential. You would have sight of that. I mean, you, Idac, not you personally necessarily.
So to be clear, Chair, we currently, if you talk of the intelligence field, Idac has matters relating to state security, and those arise from the State Capture Commission. We have also had Section 27 referrals from state security. When we request information, we invariably first engage by way of letter or meetings, and when we need them for court-directed purposes, we do issue Section 28 subpoenas. So we are mindful in terms of those, Chair, for state security. We have a legal officer that they have identified that we do serve those on. Our letters, however, go directly to the acting DG or DGs, whoever they may be at the time. When we sought information from crime intelligence, the first time that we did seek such information was with regards the Section 27 referral from Mr. Adams, but that information we then subpoenaed the National Commissioner, given the sensitive nature of documents and information in crime intelligence.
Okay, so we'll also park that for the moment. So within, or rather your husband's role within crime intelligence, there's some allegations, not confirmed by any concrete evidence, that you do or might share information which only he is privy to with you in your role as head of Idac. What would your response be to such an allegation?
Absolutely not. And I know that for some, it might be, you got to be kidding, girl. It really is. I really hold my oath of office and integrity very important. In fact, when I was to take up the position as the head of Idac, it became a reality that in terms of corruption matters, at that time when I took office, there were already corruption matters being investigated by the investigating directorate into criminal allegations, corruption allegations of SEPs. My husband was very mindful. We had a conversation about do what you need to do. That's always been how it has been. I don't need information from Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson doesn't have information to give. I wouldn't ask him for information. Pillow talk gets people killed. That's something we've never done. And that has just been it. And I know that, Honorable Chair and members, it might sound like such a glib answer. It's the true answer. If that is how you operate, you do not have to worry about a comeback. I am aware of the allegations. I think it's natural human nature for people to think that their 1 + 1 makes 2. Unfortunately, in this instance, it does not. We did not ask Mr. Johnson for any information. He didn't share any information. He won't share any information. And just to be clear, even as I sit here, if my husband is not at the Crime Intelligence head office, in all of the more than 20 years that I'm married to him, and in all the time that he's been at Crime Intelligence, I do not know where his office is. It's not my business. So it sounds simple. It is simple. And we've kept it simple.
Thank you. Just discuss, just briefly, your mandate.
So, Chair, we have set out the mandate.
Yeah, it's from paragraph 20 onwards. So
yes.
just summarize it.
But in summary, the mandate of Idac, Honorable Chair and members, is as set out in Section 71A of the National Prosecuting Authority Act. It is, as I indicated earlier, it relates to serious, high-profile, complex corruption matters. But it also deals with commercial or financial crime cases. These could arise from the commissions, Mpati, Nugent, and Zondo. Also matters referred to by the National Director in terms of Section 28(1)B, and then the Section 27 referrals. And then, like I also indicated earlier, we can also look at common law offenses, fraud, theft, forgery, uttering, and any offense relating to dishonesty. And then there's quite a few statutory offenses, PRECA, POCA, POCTATARA, PFMA, MFMA. So in the main, that would be it. And like I also said earlier, Chair, we also are obligated to deal with the FATF requirements, which therefore deal with the money laundering provisions, which find themselves in the Prevention of Organized Crime Act.
You, at paragraph 23, you deemed it prudent to deal with an allegation made by former Minister Cele that there was no or is no oversight mechanism for Idac.
That is correct, Chair. I did hear that the then minister indicated that the DPCI has a judge, and the police have IPID, and Idac has nothing. When Idac and when the NPA Amendment Act was passed and came into being in August of 2024, when the bill was signed in May of 2024, part of the provisions was that there would be an Idac judge. We saw the value therein because we engaged with the DPCI. We had also engaged with IPID. This is also something, now that I think about it, before the bill was passed, the DPCI, SEPs, and Idac, or the ID at the time, had to engage. Then Minister Cele chaired the meeting. Ministers of Justice attended the meeting, as did the head of the Hawks, then General Labia, the DG and DDGs of Justice, Doc Mashabane and Kale Pillay. I attended as the ID, and the late Advocate Rodney de Kock representing the senior management of the NPA. And there were various aspects that we had to talk about, that we had to have a gentleman's agreement on, understanding what the implication of a permanent IDAC meant. And one of the issues that then Minister Tele had raised was oversight. And we had all discussed it, and as part thereof in the bill, we requested that there be a oversight mechanism in terms of a judge to oversee Idac, all complaints relating to Idac, from the head through all of its personnel. This part of the program had to be dealt with by the Department of Justice, and the Department of Justice has appointed chair, as you would see in paragraph 11, retired Judge Takalani Joseph Raulinga as
Paragraph 24.
24 as the inspecting judge for Idac, which term commenced on the 11th of October 2025 and is for a period of 5 years. We would have to now engage the honorable judge so that we can work out the operating procedures, etc. But this is a recent appointment, but it was an appointment that was in the making, and the Department of Justice dealt with it. So to be clear, Idac had no input, nor did the NPA, into choice of judge. The legislative provisions asked for a judge to be appointed, and that falls within the ambit of our minister, and she has duly made that appointment.
So, and that's quite a recent appointment.
That is correct, although it formed part of the legislation that came into effect on the 19th of August 2024.
24.
If I may, Chair, whilst this process was being dealt with by the Department of Justice, if there were any allegations against any members of Idac, they would be dealt with. If there were criminal allegations, they are dealt with as the other allegations against NPA employees are dealt with. They go to the police for investigation. If there were issues that related to security of data, state security would become involved. And where there were issues of misconduct, the NPA has within its ambit also of HR, a unit that deals with discipline issues. And there's also the Office of Ethics and Integrity, where complaints could also have been made, just so that we do not create an impression that there was a lacuna in terms of dealing with issues of criminality and or misconduct whilst one waited for the appointment of the judge.
Does the terms of reference or the mandate of the judge, does it also deal with complaints against Idac or any of its members, like a sort of an ombud kind of role?
It would operate exactly like the DPCI judge. Any and all complaints, be they from the public and or internally, and that is how we see it would operate.
When would you?
Yes, may we please take Honorable Ngola.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I think the evidence leader did
and
not complete.
Let me welcome you to the meeting. Thank you so much. Good morning. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I'm happy to be back. I think the evidence leader did not complete the oversight mechanism question. Idac is established in 2019. The oversight mechanism is discussed in 2024. The inspectorate judge is appointed on the 11th of October 2025, which is less than 30 days ago. Now, from 2019 to up to date, how have Idac been being oversighted? Where did they report? And all that. I think that's the part that is, I think it's incomplete. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Ngola, it's much like what I indicated, that in the time that we waited for the appointment of the judge, we worked as is with all the matters within the NPA. Where there are discipline matters, they are dealt with in the disciplinary process. Where it was an issue that related to a presidential appointment, those matters are escalated as they should be to the office of the president, but there aren't any that I'm made aware of. Where there were criminal allegations, dockets are opened and those would be investigated. And where there might be allegations of compromise of data and information security, we have in the NPA the Risk and Security Division, who work very closely with state security, and those issues would have been or had to have been escalated there. So that is how it did work. But in terms of matters that I became aware of when I started as the head of Idac, or ID in March 2022, we have had disciplinary issues where we've had allegations that arose against, for example, we had an advocate that joined us, but the allegations of corruption and criminality arose from his work at the office of the DPP. However, we dealt with it because we became aware of it. A disciplinary hearing was conducted. The employee was dismissed, and I know that the criminal matter continued in court. I'm not sure how far that matter went, but that was the course of how things were dealt with, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Malem.
Thank you very much, Chair. What is an oversight?
So the Honorable Malema, you ask in terms of the judge?
What is an oversight?
So oversight is where they exercise, so the oversight is making sure that we are doing things within the prescripts of the law and or our mandate, and or in terms of the disciplinary code. That is the oversight as I see it in terms of Idac and or its employees.
And there was no oversight up until the judge is appointed to deal with oversight. There's no need to be defensive. There was no oversight. That's why now there is an appointment of a judge to make sure there is an oversight, key amongst others to avoid abuse of power by those who are at Idac.
So, Chair, nothing to defend. I can merely indicate what processes we had in the NPA at the time, from the time the ID was proclaimed in 2019. It had the labor provisions and discipline issues were dealt with there. There are matters where criminal dockets could have been opened, and those would have been investigated outside, either by the detectives or the DPCI chair. In terms of the ethics and accountability, they also fell within the labor division, and then we also had risk and security. So in terms of the general oversight, that was the NPA's mechanisms to deal with the oversight issues. In terms of mandate, Honorable Malema, I'm sure that there would have been criminal allegations that could have been laid by anyone who was aggrieved and felt that Idac had acted, or the ID acted outside of its mandate, but there wasn't a judge. I do agree with you.
There was no oversight as we have it now. What we have now was not there.
Correct.
To tell us about labor, to tell us even at the Chisanyama, there is a process of dealing with labor issues without having any oversight. So there was no oversight as we have it now.
So maybe if you'd allow me, Honorable Malema, I agree that we now have a judge. However, we were not allowed to do as we pleased if that is the contention. I can only refer to the mechanisms that were in the NPA that were applicable to the ID and Idac at the time. But you are correct, we only have a judge now.
We only have an oversight by a judge now,
That
which
is
we
correct.
didn't have.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Honorable Ngola, you're fine.
No, Chair, we're not. And I take a particular interest in this matter because I'm the chairperson.
Honorable Malema, are you satisfied? Okay. You still want to pursue it, Honorable Ngwala?
Yes, Chair. Maybe to put it differently, I'm failing to understand what Advocate Johnson is trying to brief us on. Oversight. The point is, where did Idac report between 2019 and October 2025? It's about close to 6 years now. What was the oversight mechanism in place at that particular time?
Let's do it this way. Advocate Johnson, the first question is where did you report between 2019 and October 2025?
Honorable Chair and members, the accountability for Idac, the head of Idac reports to the National Director in terms of its work and in terms of that oversight, if we want to use that word. So the accountability mechanism for Idac at the time is in the Office of the National Director.
Next question.
I'm fine, Chair. We'll pursue it further later.
Okay, thank you so much. SC, you may proceed. Thank you so much.
In the short period that Judge Raulinga has been in office, has been appointed, has he received any complaints? And if so, what are the nature of these complaints?
None that we've been made aware of, Chair.
Do you meet with the judge from time to time? Have you met with him since his appointment in October?
No, Chair, we have not.
Is the public aware of his appointment and where to direct any complaints?
Chair, I can only answer in the following way. Judge has been appointed by the Minister of Justice. I'm not sure what his terms of reference are yet, how they've worked that out, but there should be a public indication of the fact that there is a judge. The judge would have to give us the terms of reference, or they should be published through the Department of Justice by the Office of the Minister or the Director General, because that is where the judge sits. What his terms of reference would be, the complaints mechanism, how they report matters, who reports matters. The judge does not account to Idac at all, or the NPA, but accounts within the Department of Justice.
When and how would the judge's appointment have been made public and announced in the media?
I am unable to assist, Chair. I'm not aware of what the plans of the Department of Justice are to ensure that the public is aware, but it is a critical aspect that the public should be made aware of, because that talks to accountability. People need to know where to go to if they have any complaints about Idac on its staff, and what the nature of those complaints and or the format should be for the reporting of complaints to the judge.
Would you be able to comment or not on whether senior members of police management or other law enforcement agencies, would they have been aware of his appointment?
I'm unable to comment, sir.
Can we just deal briefly with your experience in two of the more high-profile matters of former or the late General Jackie Selebi and Mr. Solly Lazarus, and their prosecution for corruption, just by way of short background?
Honorable Chair and members, I deal with it very broad strokes at paragraphs 25, 26 and 27 of the affidavit. And just based on our experience, mine included with criminal cases against the late Mr. Jackie Celebi, and it was also with Mr. Solly Lazarus with SAPS procurement, and now with SAPS procurement matters in Idac. It seems that when the police, and this is in general, not a specific unit, regardless of which component, invites bids for the procurement of services or goods, many people want to participate because they've come to know that the contracts can be very large, and we've seen that play itself out as well in public. They're lucrative. And in terms of the prosecution and investigation in the corruption matter involving the then Chief Financial Officer of Crime Intelligence, Mr. Lazarus, who currently serves a term of imprisonment, Lazarus demonstrated what I referred to above. And during this process, at the time we were in the DSO, it became very apparent, and this is not passage talk, it became apparent through the investigation that officials had learned that if Mr. Lazarus asked something, people were reluctant to say no, because he was the CFO. If you wanted something, the CFO got it for you. So you didn't stand in the way of the CFO, and I'm talking about at the time. That specific CFO and others came up with several schemes to ensure gratification to and from parties relevant to the entire procurement and acquisition process. As an example, and one of the main charges against the then CFO, Mr. Lazarus, was they procured vehicles, covert vehicles, and vehicles for crime intelligence. Part of that was him ensuring that his kickback was getting vehicles, one of which he got for his daughter, for which he was charged, and one of which he got for his family members. So there wasn't procurement for procurement and procurement for services for its officials to be able to do the work. At that time, in that specific instance, there was always, what can I get out of it? And those were the instances that we were able to actively pick up in relation to Mr. Lazarus.
Then, just to move on also briefly, because you've already touched on it to a large extent, the role of crime intelligence in the whole criminal justice system and how important that is.
So,
that you deal with it at paragraphs 28 to 30.
Chair, we must make no mistake that crime intelligence is integral to the fight against crime. It is something that we've always worked with as prosecutors and investigators, especially in the work that I did in my portfolio of dealing with organized crime matters. The DPCI, when the DSO was disbanded, I would attend a lot of their project committee meetings. That is where they discuss which projects to take on, etc. A continued argument that we always had with the DPCI was, if you do not have a credible crime threat analysis from crime intelligence, it is really difficult for you to register projects. And we say that because crime intelligence is very good at coming up, especially for organized crime, with credible crime threat analysis. And this was at the time when we were dealing with organized crime, which I dealt with up until February of 2022. And so it is so that they play a very important role, Honorable Chair, in that they provide for a system that allows for a very credible report of information, which is called a crime threat analysis. It informs law enforcement agencies across the board about possible groupings and syndicates, their criminal activities, the commodities that they may be trading in, and other relevant information. They also deal with transnational organized crime. And so a crime threat analysis from crime intelligence won't restrict itself just to the borders, but if there was something that we needed to know about these syndicates operating outside of our borders, they made that part of the crime threat analysis. I've said it helped investigators and prosecutors. And crime intelligence, without a doubt, is critical to the fight against crime, especially organized crime. I think the only challenge that was found, and that was only based on the Celebi matter that we did, the matter against Solly Lazarus, there was a matter against one Mr. Richard Mdluli, but I haven't dealt with that matter. as critical as their function is, the key challenge that was found during those investigations is accountability for the use of its funds. And unfortunately, secrecy characterizes the utilization of the funds and the procurement. And like I say, Honorable Chair, this was encountered since the time of the Celebi investigation, and we found that fast forward into the Lazarus and the Mdluli era. So I think out of all of this, one hopes that even with this committee, that one finds a balance between their mandate, how it's executed, protecting its COVID mandate, but still that there be accountability for its funding and funding mechanism. And the reason for that, Chair, is not because we need to know about their money. It helps ensure the accountability mechanism, and so that there's no abuse of funds within that system, whether it is for personal gain or otherwise.
Thank you. Can we just move to Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi? Do you know him? How well do you know him?
I guess well is relative, but I've known him for a long time in terms of knowing of him. But in March of 2020, and for about a period of 3 months, I got to work every day with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. It was during the period of COVID. He chaired what was called the National Core Command Group, which was a group of generals from the various police components. There were people from the Department of Health. I represented the NPA, etc. And what would happen there, Honorable Chair and members, is when regulations came out, we would have to sit together to see how they would be operationalized, the kind of standing orders SAPS would send, and the kind of provisions we would have to send to the prosecutors for the prosecution and investigation of certain matters. So he chaired that meeting. We saw him every day. It was very seldom that General Mkhwanazi did not chair the meeting. It was the odd occasion. But he was there. He's very boots on the ground, committed individual. So I've worked with him in that environment. I came to know of him being the acting National Police Commissioner, but Honorable Chair and members, we didn't engage on that platform. And now in my time as in Idac, we did engage with General Mkhwanazi. In my time as Idac, when these investigations of the matters that were referred to Idac by Mr. Adams, out of habit, what one does is when investigators go into a province and they are going to see police personnel, you will inform the police commissioner, provincial commissioner, as do prosecutors when they appear in a jurisdiction of a director of public prosecutions. So investigators would inform General Mkhwanazi that they were in his province, that they were seeing police officials as potential witnesses. They also, one of the investigators also engaged him, Honorable Chair and members, when we needed issues of clarity. And that is as far as the engagement goes. And the last engagement I had personally with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi was during the month of June. He had called and I was away for work and unable to take the call. When I called back, he said, not urgent, we'll talk when you get back. I guess we both got busy. General then did speak to me on the 2nd of July. And on the 2nd of July, it is when the General indicated that he wanted me to talk to somebody about an issue. He sent me the details, but unfortunately, before I don't call anyone. I usually give it to the head of operations, Mr. Sissoko. But before I could do that, the 6th of July media expose by Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi happened, and that was the ambit of our engagements. Our engagements stopped on the 2nd of July.
Now, he makes reference to one of your investigators. Mr. Brian Badiachi. Can you tell us a bit about that? Or let me just put to you two allegations made by Lieutenant General Konazi in his affidavit. He says a further condition is that if the accused required anything related to their work, it could only be obtained through the intervention of the investigating officer. This is in relation to Lieutenant General Kumalo, Senior Investigator Brian Badiachi of Idac, and then later on he says, having regard to the sensitive nature of Lieutenant General Kumalo's role, a condition empowering Mr. Badiachi to have any access to crime intelligence information is unwarranted. It compromises state security. Lieutenant General Kumalo has applied for the bail conditions to be amended, but the hearing of this application to amend has been postponed on numerous occasions. So just in relation to, we're going to deal with Lieutenant General Kumalo's arrest and the charges against him. Yeah. You deal with it from paragraph 56 onwards, allegations against Mr. Brian Badiachi.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and members. To go back to the assertion that you made, Council, I am aware...
Not that I make.
That General Mkhonazi makes that you've put to me. The assertion being that Mr. Badiachi would have and be allowed to have access to CI and documents, it is, I think it's incorrectly interpreted. That condition dealt with, and mainly because we have witnesses at crime intelligence, and those witnesses had indicated that they had been intimidated and victimized. So the condition for them not going to CI was to ensure that the witnesses were not intimidated. Mr. Badiachi would not have been allowed, to be clear, to access any documents from crime intelligence. We would have had to follow, if after that one identified that there were documents from crime intelligence that were required, Chair, we would have had to follow the process we had followed initially, which would have been to issue a Section 28 subpoena to the National Police Commissioner. No one would have been allowed to go to CI, engage any personnel, or take on any documents. And when it comes to Mr. Badiachi, it is Mr. Badiachi who, in fact, would call Lieutenant General Mkhonazi to let him know that he was going to be in his province. It was him who engaged with the Lieutenant General mainly. They met, they would have talked. They had meetings, they had WhatsApp exchanges about Mr. Badiachi going down to KZN and what it is that he would require. And General Mkhonazi was always willing to assist and or to facilitate. I'm not sure what might have gone wrong, because I'm not aware of anything having gone wrong. But when the allegations are made, Honorable Chair and members, that Lieutenant General Mkhonazi cannot understand what Badiachi is doing at Idac. I found Mr. Badiachi at the ID. He had come to the ID and had been sought after by my predecessor, Advocate Hermione Cronje, and he remained then at Idac. He did undergo a detective course. He has conducted several investigations in his time in the South African Police Services. He wasn't only at crime intelligence. We do refer, Honorable Chair and members, from paragraphs 62.1 up to paragraph 62.3 of specific matters that Mr. Badiachi dealt with as an investigator within the South African Police Services in his time at the South African Police Services. So the assertion that he's got no investigating experience and no one knows what he's doing there is incorrect. He has the requisite qualifications, he's had the requisite experience, and he was at Idac from sometime in 2021, me having taken office in March of 2022, and has conducted investigations as part of different teams that were doing investigations in Idac.
Thank you. Honourable Chair, may I just request a short adjournment? There's some, you would have seen some activity, there's some documents that I wish to refer the witness to, and which is not part of Ms. Johnson's statement.
That is-
committee
That
members.
that is granted, SC. We will come back at 11:45.
Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Breitenbach and Honorable Kolabana to take their seats. SC and Advocate Johnson, are you ready to resume?
Thank you, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, Advocate Johnson. Yes, thank you, Honourable Chair, for allowing us the adjournment. These documents are on record before the committee. It's just that we were trying to, for the convenience, create a bundle. And so if and when I get to it, I'll refer to the documents in the bundle. But Advocate Johnson, we were last dealing with Padeachi, and I think you've concluded your remarks or comments about him and his experience as an investigator. And he's actually someone that, when you came to the what was previously known as the Independent Directorate under Herman Cronje, he had already been employed there as an investigator.
That is correct, Chair.
Okay. Now, I think you've already touched on this, and unless you want to say anything further, we can conclude it quite quickly. These insinuations about your husband working for crime intelligence.
There's nothing to comment more than it is an insinuation. People are entitled to their opinions, albeit that they are untrue and unfounded. I can take it no further, Chair.
Okay. Then again, briefly, just under the subheading Idac investigations into Mr. Usumuzi Kat Matlala, from page 23, paragraph 69 onwards. Do you want to comment on that?
Honourable Chair and members, I deal with it at page 23 from paragraphs 69. And without going into the detail of each paragraph, Idac received a Section 27 referral from the South African Police Services, more so their Risk Audit Division. And this is not the first time we would have received referrals or worked with the Risk Audit Division. There are many matters currently in Idac where one is looking at corruption, PFMA contraventions, and fraud related to the supply chain management component of the South African Police Services. And in fact, we have cases where even the head of supply chain, General Mokoena, is facing criminal charges. We have DNC Bonang Ngwenya also facing criminal charges, as well as several other high-ranking police officials. So there are several investigations in Idac, to be clear, that relate to police corruption and more so the supply chain and procurement component.
Just to pause there, does it relate, excuse me, perhaps to the tender that was eventually cancelled? The one that was awarded to one of Mr. Matlala's companies?
So the first and only time that we are looking into allegations against Mr. Matlala relates to the 360 million rand tender that was awarded and then subsequently cancelled sometime this year. So there haven't been criminal investigations into him as a service provider. We have criminal investigations against SAPS members and other service providers where the supply chain management processes were circumvented and corruption or fraud or PFMA contraventions took place. So in February of this year is the first time that we got a referral that relates to Mr. Matlala as a potential suspect, either in fraud, corruption, or together with other SAPS officials, contraventions of the PFMA. So we received the referral on the 16th of February 2025. And then through the media, we as we paid attention, we found out that Mr. Matlala had been arrested and his phones were seized. Our interest was piqued because the media reports referred to his devices being seized. And so, given that one was afraid that for the devices to either they get lost or data gets compromised, we also were not aware of who seized the items. We first went to a judge, got cyber warrants, also search warrants. And then, as we almost always do, we first check with the DPCI because many of these matters tend to be with the DPCI. We called the head of the DPCI in Gauteng, Major General Kadwa, to say to him, General, we have a cyber warrant for the electronic devices, whatever they may be, for one Mr. Kat Matlala. Do you have those devices so that we can then execute an access warrant because these have already been seized? Major General Kadwa indicated that he's not aware of these matters, would find out where the matter was. But in that time, we were able to engage the Office of the National Commissioner, and the National Commissioner then indicated that the phones were seized by the PKTT and that he would arrange through Lieutenant General Kumalo for those devices to be made available. During the course of that day, a police official, we assume from the PKTT, availed himself with 2 cell phones in a evidence bag. The cell phones were still on. I'm not sure why they were on, but they were on. We had a cyber expert on standby so that the download of those cell phones and the execution of the access warrant was done properly. The official stayed in the room. The investigators from Idac dealing with the matter were present. The cell phones were downloaded. They were put back in the bag, handed to the official. To date, what we have is data. We were never in possession, save for the time of the actual download of any of the electronic devices of Mr. Matlala. But during the download process and in the presence of the police official who brought those cell phones, the cyber expert made it clear that there were gaps as it became apparent that data had been deleted. Of course, that would have to form part of his report when he makes his report as to when data was deleted and or that there is information missing. We then got that data. We have continued with the investigation into the allegations relating to the SAPS tender. There are many persons that are implicated, both within SAPS as well as Mr. Matlala and some associates. That investigation continues, and that is how we became involved in that matter. The only matter that Idac currently is looking at with regards to Mr. Matlala relates to the 360 million rand tender. Other tenders relating to the Tembisa Hospital, Honorable Chair and members, is dealt with by the DPCI. And we are aware of those matters because in these weekly meetings, those matters also do get discussed. And we do have an arrangement that should we require any information that we are unable to procure, they would sort of steer us in the right direction in terms of the Matlala matter, but that hasn't arisen because we were able to deal with the matter as we have it. So that's the only investigation. And that's the only time Idac has dealt with Mr. Matlala and or had cause to have access to any of his digital devices. It was just 2 cell phones.
Now this referral on the 16th of February this year, where did this referral come from within SAPS? Your statement just says it's a referral from SAPS. Who in particular referred the matter to Idac?
The head of their risk audit referred the matter to Idac in terms of a Section 27 referral, deposed to an affidavit, attached supporting documents, and the matter came over to Idac.
And when would you first be alerted to this, and or when would you become involved in this referral, if at all?
So, Honorable Chair and members, when matters are referred, they almost invariably come through one of the chief criminal investigators and or more so through the head of investigations and operations, Mr. Matthew Sissoko. So they would receive the matters, go through the matter at a cursory perusal, see whether or not it's a matter that Idac can take. They then compile an application, which we call a Section 28 application, for the ID to consider whether or not to authorize an investigation. That is the only time, or the first time, that I then become involved in applying my mind to the matter. Here, the matter was then authorized, and when it is authorized, investigators and prosecutors, etc., are designated to conduct the investigation of these matters, as it's a prosecution-led methodology. But the investigators and the prosecuting team go about determining what taskings, activities, line of investigation, etc., should be followed. It is not for the ID.
So there would first be what sounds like a preliminary investigation that you would authorize?
Chair, for clarity, there are two types of investigations. Usually when we get the Section 27 referrals, it also depends on the level of information and or evidence that is provided. There are times where you can authorize a full-blown investigation, which is a Section 28(1). But in most instances, and to err on the side of caution, we, or the ID, is able to declare a preparatory investigation, which is a preliminary investigation. It is allowed in terms of Section 28(13) of the NPA Act. And as the investigation progresses and they are able to find evidence of the alleged criminality, and there is more than a reasonable suspicion of the allegations, the team has to bring another application to say, at the point where we are at, this can now be a full-blown investigation. There have been matters, just for clarity, Chair, where we authorized a preliminary. After the investigations were done, there wasn't anything to take it forward in terms of sufficient evidence as part of the investigation, and those investigations can be closed. So it's not automatic. It does not automatically progress from one to the other. It depends on the evidence.
So how soon, or when after the 16th of February 2025, when the referral was made, did the request to authorize a further investigation, for want of a better word, was that authorized by you?
It would have been within the month.
Within the month?
Yes, because what happens, Chair, is if they sit with it, they can't do anything with it. They have to have an investigation authorized, albeit preparatory. And what it does, Honorable Chair and members, is there are certain processes that can only be activated. So, for example, the request for bank documents, the request for cell phone data, the request for company documents can only take place once you have a Section 28 authorization. And Section 28 authorizations, therefore, by their nature, allow for the activation of legal processes to obtain information. So they have to do it as soon as they are able to put it together, or else it's a piece of paper you're sitting with. You can't move with it when it's not authorized.
Without,
I just heard you saying on the tender of 360 million, there are a lot of people involved, including police officers and service providers. Is Minister Mukhunu and former Minister Cele amongst the people that you are looking at?
Honorable Chair, it would be irresponsible to mention who potential suspects are till we get to evidence. Honorable Malema, I have learned that you can throw a name out there and then you follow what you think is an investigation path, and it does not amount to evidence, it would be irresponsible. You cause irreparable harm. But what I can say is there are several persons implicated, and regardless of their ranking and who they are, and whether they're public or private officials, as long as there's evidence, Idac will follow that evidence, Honorable Member, and where we can, they will most certainly be prosecuted.
Maybe let me put it differently. You were able to say police officers, high-ranking police officers. Are the politicians that you are looking at without mentioning names?
That is correct, Honorable Member.
Thank you.
May we proceed? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. In the referral, this is now in relation to Matlala and subsequently the application, the internal application to you to
Do you need the
authorize
details of the
further
councils?
investigation.
Thank you. Through you, Chair.
Can you give us?
They say there's
I
an
know
NPA.
in your
Yeah,
response,
thank you.
Honourable
We'll see
Malema
them as
now,
well. Thank you, Chair.
One can understand these matters are
What is the name of
sub
the
judice
senior counsel?
and your concern about,
If I can
about
ask my
fairness
councils to introduce
to
themselves,
the
Chair.
accused persons and the
Good morning,
subsequent
Chair. My
fair
name
trial.
is Apla. My surname is Bosha.
You don't want to
Thank you.
jeopardize that. But can you give us some idea of what was in this referral?
Tsietsi Ramatsekisa.
For example, was there any mention
Thank you so
about
much, Honorable
PKTT?
Nomvalo.
Is there any
Yeah,
mention
no, thanks,
about
Chair. I just wanted to let you know
General
that
Konazi? Was there any
Council
mention about Lieutenant
Ramatsekisa
General
was my
Kumalo?
lecturer in the University of Fort Hare. He was lecturing me
Honorable Chair and members,
the
not
law
in
of
the documents
evidence.
that we received.
A module.
Yes, the referral.
Yeah, not in the referral that we received. We
So-
received a referral that talks to
You want to
irregularities
tell us that you are
in
the
the
evidence
awarding
of his work?
the 360 million rand
No,
tender
Chair, he's telling
to
you
one
that he's
Vusimuzi Cat
implicated.
Matlala.
So he
It
must be
refers
out.
to police officials,
Okay,
but
okay.
General Komalo, General
Honourable-
Konazi
Honourable
were not
Pambo, good
mentioned
morning.
in that referral.
Thank you so much.
Nor was the
The staff of
PKTT,
Parliament, we greet you.
It refers purely
And the
to
support
the
staff of
tender,
all
the
political
tender
parties.
process, and other members
Good
of the
morning
South
to
African
all
Police
of you.
Services
We
within the supply chain
are going to
of the South
commence
African
with,
Police Services,
today's
the bid
proceedings.
evaluation committee,
Our
the bid
witness today
adjudication
is
committee.
Ms. Johnson
That
from
is where
Idac.
it stopped. There's no reference to any of those that you've mentioned, Honourable Chair.
And just again in your response to Honourable Malema, when you confirmed, I think, that a minister or ministers are also mentioned, is it in the same referral?
So, to be clear, it's not ministers that are mentioned. There are allegations that politicians are involved, and so we have to determine who these politicians are and what their level of involvement was, and whether that involvement then amounts to criminality. In a lot of them, they also would talk of, for example, other persons affiliated to Mr. Matlala. No names are provided. I guess as one does the investigation, you have to look at who in that entire value chain would have been compromised and or complicit in the awarding of what now turns out to be a tender that ought not to have been awarded to Mr. Matlala.
We looked at the investigation into Kat Matlala, and also you were explaining your role in the whole. We just continue with that from the time you get a referral, and then there's an application to authorize an investigation or further investigation. Just expand on that.
So once the investigation is authorized, Chair, whether it's a preliminary investigation or, in our terminology, a full-blown investigation, the investigators and prosecutors that are designated, they sit and work out what the line of investigation is, what evidence or documentation they would require, from whom and where, They have timelines for the investigations, and they will also determine the kind of resources they might require in order to conduct that investigation. And they go about their business. They will engage the ID, for example, if there is something that is required, and given our stakeholder relationships, there are instances where it is better, as we have also done with the National Commissioner of Police. More often than not, we will first write a letter making a request for certain things. So there are instances where, for example, they would come to the ID and indicate what they need, and we rather follow that recourse of writing a letter and requesting information. Of course, then when we need it for court-directed purposes, we then agree with the person, we're going to have to serve you with the Section 28 subpoena, especially for issues of chain of custody and evidence. The investigations will carry on.
Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to find out the clarity. As you sit there, you just said that there's allegations against politicians, am I right? And as you sit there today, you don't even know who those allegations against today. I'm talking about today.
Chair.
I am not saying we don't know against whom. It is irresponsible to be throwing names of persons who might be implicated when the investigation is not yet completed. And so the level of evidence against them might either result in us having to charge and prosecute, or it might be that they are mentioned, but there is no evidence. So the investigation continues.
Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Ngola, are you fine? Yes, we may proceed.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Sorry, Advocate Johnson, we were talking about your role, if any, in any, from the time there's a referral through to an investigation and then a decision to prosecute, and perhaps the prosecution itself. Maybe you would become involved if it's Oscar Pistorius, but your role in these matters.
So, Honorable Chair and members, once the investigation and prosecution team have concluded the investigation, and they have determined that charges can be brought, and they have determined against whom. What we tend to do before they put together their charge sheet, or what we also do is we ask them to put together a draft charge sheet, and they would present that matter to myself, some of the other deputy directors of public prosecutions who are not involved in the matter, as well as the head of investigations and operations, Mr. Sissoko. They'll talk us through the matter so that we can engage and discuss if we see any loopholes, if there's suggestions we can make on things that must still happen. But it's a collective back and forth engagement. And once that is done, the team will decide who the lead prosecutor will be. They'll put together a charge sheet. They'll also put together what we call a prosecution memo. And that prosecution memo, Chair, gets sent to the Director of Public Prosecution, in whose area of jurisdiction the matter will appear. Because in terms of the NPA Act, the investigating director enrolls after consultation with the Director of Public Prosecutions of that specific jurisdiction. So we send through the prosecution memo, they apply their minds. DPP will usually send a letter to say, they have gone through the matter, you may go ahead. And then we enroll the matter as other criminal matters do in the normal course of NPA matters. And they run through the court system.
So, also just to be clear and understand, do you authorize the prosecution of a matter referred to Idac, or is the decision to prosecute the matter with the DPP in a particular province, or does the DPP just enroll the matter for a criminal trial?
So the investigating director and all the prosecution staff in Idac have a delegation and mandate to institute prosecutions for and on behalf of the state, similar to any of my counterparts in any of the other NPA offices and divisions. So it is not seeking permission to enroll the matter. It is to inform the DPP that we will enroll the matter in the area of his or her jurisdiction. However, what has happened is they can ask clarity from that prosecution memo. One or two have, we respond thereto, and then they indicate they are satisfied. But the institution of the prosecution happens by the lead prosecutor in the team. What the ID will do is, in going through the charge sheet, would approve that, yes, this is a charge sheet and that it can go to court. Honorable Chair, I think this hands.
Honorable Nomvalo.
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. Advocate, I just want to be clear on this aspect. Does a referral only require you to prosecute? Do you not face instances where, for instance, a referral will come with evidence which is not complete, which requires you to do more investigation in order for you to establish prima facie evidence? Is it always the case that it requires you to prosecute, it comes with prima facie evidence?
Honorable Nomvalo, no. When the referral comes, investigation must get done. So an investigation must first be declared in Idac, and the investigation must be done. So even if we are given a referral with what others might consider substantial evidence, we have to declare an investigation. We have to check that that evidence is correct. We have to go back and talk to those witnesses. We take supplementary affidavits if we need to. We conduct further investigation, and only then do we prosecute. So a referral does not allow for an immediate prosecution. A referral allows for an investigation first. Even if we were given a docket, Honorable Nomvalo, we would have to first authorize in the Idac space, and investigations must happen, albeit just to verify. We cannot just run into a prosecution.
I'm okay, Chair.
Let's proceed. Yes, yes.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We just needed some clarity because you talk about the team, the investigating team, and now the prosecuting team. The matter is discussed. The matter is discussed. But what is discussed? Are you discussing whether there are prospects or what the prospects are of a successful prosecution? Or do you discuss matter, or is it already determined or decided by the lead investigator, lead prosecutor, that we are going to prosecute, and now you come in as the head of Idac to discuss various aspects of the prosecution where you may require further evidence, additional evidence to strengthen the case or whatever? Just to understand your role in these matters.
There's no separate teams. A team will comprise of a deputy director who would lead the team, and there's chief and criminal investigators. There's a project manager who will manage. There can also be data analysts. And if we need external service providers are also designated to the matter. So at the stage it comes to the ID and others for presentation, it is for the team to present their evidence, what the allegations are, what evidence they have to support those allegations, any challenges they may have encountered, what it is they would require from the ID or the head of operations, or having given us that brief, evidence, charges, what supports it, what's the next steps, that they are now ready, they would like to have the matter enrolled, and then the administrative processes start. What they would need from the ID is to indicate once they've provided charge sheet and the prosecution memo is that the ID approves that they can go ahead, but then we have to engage the office of the DPP first.
Have you or do you or can you interfere with that process of prosecution, and are there instances, have there been instances where when the case was presented to you, you, for good reasons or for no reason, decided no, this matter should not proceed to prosecution?
Honorable Chair, I cannot interfere in a decision, but I have to apply my mind to the evidence, to the allegations, what it is they want to do. We make proposals. Sometimes there may be more evidence that we can point them to, and that is what we do, and we advise on the matter. There has been one or two instances, like I indicated, where you have a preparatory investigation, and when you go through what they present, it's insufficient for a prosecution. Then that decision is made in consultation with that team. I don't sit on my own and say, no, this is not going to work. We're not going to allow this. There's an engagement, and when the team knows and understands, the team will then send a closure report indicating that for these reasons, we make the proposal for the matter to be closed. It's also done in a formal way.
Is there some inbuilt internal mechanisms to review any decision you might make? Or are there instances where it has happened?
So the review mechanism is where, for example, what we do have, and especially in matters that have gone to court, accused persons have the right to make a representation. They will make a representation which would first come through the prosecuting team to the ID. If that representation is unsuccessful, as is with every other matter in the NPA, they have a right of review through the Office of the National Director. So there are review mechanisms to that decision. And in that representation, they can indicate why they believe the investigating director and directorate made the wrong decision to prosecute, and they can provide the necessary evidence which would have to be taken into consideration by the National Director. I think at this point that function in her office is also delegated to the Deputy National Director of the Prosecution Services. At this time it's Advocate Mzinyati. Previously it was the late Advocate Rodney de Kock. But there are review mechanisms that are applicable to prosecutions across the board.
And just because I think it is quite an important matter that was raised by Honourable Malema in relation to the judge, the overseeing judge. Would a matter that has been referred on review to the NDPP's office, and where that office concurred with a decision not to prosecute the matter, would such a matter, in terms of the mandate of the judge, go to him, or can it be referred to him?
I'm sure that it can, if what the persons allege might be a malicious prosecution, a compromised investigation. Those would therefore talk to the integrity of a prosecutor and or an investigator. And of course, I see no reason why it shouldn't go there for the judge to apply his mind. And whilst you're on that point, if I may, Honourable Chair, on that oversight question, the Parliament has been the oversight body of the NPA, and therefore Idac by its nature. So over and beyond the steps that I mentioned of bodies in the NPA. So that's the oversight. But I take the point that the Honourable Malema makes. We only have a judge now. And it is in this process that one is going to be able to determine the value of having this kind of different oversight mechanism that hasn't been a feature of the NPA before, and only because we have investigators and prosecutors under one roof in one agency.
Now, there's also an office in the NPA that's been established. I think forget the full name designation now, but the Office of something integrity.
Is ethics and accountability.
Ethics and accountability. Would that office have oversight responsibilities over the work that Idac does?
They would have had up until the appointment of the judge. All complaints that relate to Idac must go outside of the NPA to the judge who's been appointed. So the NPA does not oversee those allegations. The NPA will still, I guess, of course, look at misconduct issues, which are labor issues, but complaints against Idac officials will go to the judge designated.
Okay. Now, just to get a bit closer home to the matter that we're dealing with specifically and to the allegations of Lieutenant General Kumalo, he says in an affidavit that has been placed before us that despite its mandate and the way you've described it, Idac has elected to involve itself in labor matters. And he refers specifically to the arrest of Lieutenant General Kumalo on the 28th of June 2025, along with 6 senior members of management on charges of corruption relating to the irregular appointment of Brigadier Makwele, and the records a Brooklyn case number. It is important to note that
Sorry,
under
Chair,
normal circumstances, irregular appointments are addressed through established human resource procedures. In this instance, however, the members of the selection panel responsible for Brigadier Makwele's appointment were arrested and formally charged. The peculiar exercise of criminal jurisdiction over a labor matter warrants further scrutiny. And then he says, I was further informed that members of the PKTT have been the subject of several unwarranted cases as a result of their work. Although the cases themselves are without merit, they serve to distract members and instill fear and undermine the team in the eyes of the public. And then he records certain cases, referring to December 2024, the accused, Usumuzi Matlala, was advised to open a false case against members of the PKTT. Then there was also a case opened by Ms. Fundiswa Nyalungu, the partner of accused Mr. Katiso, Katie Molefe, and by 2 of his nieces. It refers to the case numbers. In January 2025, Captain Magotloi, a ballistic expert with forensic services, opened a kidnapping case. And during April 2025, Brigadier Shabalala from the DPCI head office initiated a case, Eastern Cape case, involving allegations of theft under the Corruption Act. So that is by way of background in relation to the broad allegations made by Lieutenant General Nkwenazi. Can we perhaps deal specifically with the matter of that resulted in the arrest of Lieutenant General Khumalo. When, to your knowledge, did this saga begin, which resulted eventually in his arrest and subsequent appearance in court, and I believe also again today to amend or to relax his bail conditions?
Honorable Chair, before I proceed, don't know if Honorable Songani still has, she had her hand.
Yeah, we did not want to distract the SC. What do you want to do? Do you want to take a question first, or do you want to answer the SC?
Maybe she had a point to it that she would want
Okay.
to make.
Let's take Honorable Sangon.
No, thank you, Chair. No, it was a small point, just clarity. When the SC was reading, he started off saying in an affidavit deposed by General Khumalo. I wanted to make sure that it was
Yes.
General Mkhwana's.
I concur, he did say that, Honorable Member, and I was going
sorry,
to ask.
Did
Yes.
I say Khumalo?
Yes, you said Khumalo.
Oh, no.
So it was Mkhwana's.
It was Mkonazi, and it's an affidavit that is attached to his statement before the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I will deal with the arrest of Lieutenant General Khumalo, but you made mention of quite a few things about the PKTT, and I would just, for purposes of completeness, indicate that Idac is not aware of these cases that were made, be they by Mr. Matlala about theft, by Katitso Molefe, the ballistic case, or any other case that has been made against any of the PKTT members. They are not allegations that Idac is looking at, and so I am, unfortunately, Chair, unable to provide this House with any information with relates or with regards to those matters. I'm not saying that there weren't cases. I also cannot comment on the validity of these cases and or not. That's not my place. What I can then indicate, Honorable Chair and members, is early in November 2024, Idac did receive a Section 27 referral from Mr. Adams. To be clear, the ID herself hasn't met Mr. Adams, nor have I spoken to Mr. Adams, nor have I engaged Mr. Adams. And the reason for it is simple. Matters that are referred to Idac must come through the head of investigations and or the two chief criminal investigators. That is how it works. And so I hadn't had any engagement. The Section 27 referral comes through in November. The investigators have engaged with Mr. Adams. His affidavit is taken. They then present an application for an authorization, as I've previously explained, as part of process, and the investigations are authorized. What was presented, Honorable Chair and members, is in terms of the collective matters that were referred by Mr. Adams, it wasn't one matter. As it stands in Idac, they translate to 6 different matters. But the Section 28 referral looked at the collective complaint. And in terms of the collective complaint then looked at whether or not the bypassing of processes, the manipulation of processes and systems, the gratification in terms of the form of an employment, etc., fell within the ambit of state capture as we know it. Not the state capture per se of the State Capture Commission matters, but within the broader definition of what that capture meant. When we determined that the full ambit of those cases fall within that definition, the matters were then authorized. Currently, 2 matters are in court.
Can you just pause there and describe to us what defined the characteristics of what is regarded as capture, state capture?
So Chair, we have always, through the process of deciding whether or not, in the broader sense of the word, there is capture or state capture, we have looked within the ambit of the State Capture Commission report, And as I have referred in paragraph 37, if you would allow me to read, it says that according to the Zondo Commission,
Yes.
and there it's the State Capture Commission report, state capture is a project where a group of actors with their network of collaborators systematically conspire to redirect sources for their own private gain. It's achieved by the improper influence of state appointments and procurement and manipulating the rules and procedures of government's decision-making, undermining oversight mechanisms, and weakening key state institutions like law enforcement and intelligence services. We then had to look at what those different allegations were. And I know that, and I do say in the affidavit, Honorable Chair and members, if you just take the Kumalo matter, just stand alone. Of course, the members of this House can say, what were you doing? That is a standalone matter. What is it doing in your mandate? It is in our mandate in terms of there is corruption, then there's the argument. But that's not serious corruption. But what is serious corruption? Does the manipulation and bypassing of processes, putting people in strategic appointments, isn't that what got us where it got us to in terms of state capture? And then you say, serious? Is serious money? Is serious the offense and the office bearers who are entrusted with these positions, who bypass these positions? And then let's just say, I lose that argument. The Idac mandate can also look at fraud, which you would see in the charge sheet. It can look at issues of fraud, forgery, uttering theft, and any other matter that involves dishonesty. So as it stands alone, even on its own, and you take the corruption and you say to me, Madam Idac, it's gone. There are still matters that fall within the ambit of Idac for it to investigate and prosecute. But like I said, we first looked at the entirety of the Section 27. When we go to court, we've taken them on as the matters as they stand, or else we end up, Honorable Chair and members, with issues of misjoinder and charging people for different things where they shouldn't be in the same matter. And so we were able to then, as part of this process, start with matter one, which was the arrest of the Chief Financial Officer for the defeating and fraud. And then the second matter would therefore relate to the matter that we now discuss, which would be the arrest of Lieutenant General Kumalo and others.
And so there are 4 other matters.
There are 4 other matters that form part of the umbrella of matters that were the Section 27 referral that were sent through.
Honorable Malema.
Sorry, Madam, you were interrupted when you were trying to give us example of 2 cases. You said there are 2 cases and then you stopped there.
Honorable Malema, there were 2 cases that are already in court. The first case relates to the criminal allegations against Chief Financial Officer Major General Lushaba of Crime Intelligence. That was the first matter that was enrolled. And then a little over 2 weeks later, the matter relating to Lieutenant General Kumalo and the 6 other accused was enrolled. There are 4 other investigations that have yet to be enrolled because those investigations are not yet complete, but they arise out of that Section 27 referral. I hope I've provided clarity.
So, in those cases, do you find the name of General Mkhwanazi in there and the National Commissioner being part of the referrals that were sent to?
In terms of the Section 27 referral by Mr. Adams, I can tell you that I don't recall being briefed or seen in the referral itself for the authorization the name of General Mkhwanazi. And also with regards to the National Commissioner, I haven't seen his name other than, I guess, as the investigations progress. And to be very honest with you, Honorable Malema, I haven't had a briefing as of recent, so I cannot tell you about the National Commissioner and whether or not his name does appear.
But there was a story that there is prima facie evidence that is in your position against Mkhwanazi and the National Commissioner, and you are reluctant to charge. And if that is the case, will that not be defeating the end of justice if there is an overwhelming or prima facie evidence before you and you are reluctant to charge because of certain names, irrespective of who they are?
So to be clear, Honorable Chair and members, those allegations do not come out of the Section 27 referral. When I took over as the head, as the ID, there were already corruption matters that had initially fallen within the ambit of IPID. Those IPID investigators, when they were brought over to the ID at the time, came with their cases.
Are you okay, Honorable?
No, she was still responding to my question.
You will indicate if you are.
It's not me, it's a honorable member from Eastern Cape.
May I be allowed to finish, and then if Honorable Ngola will then be allowed to ask. Thank you, Chair. So those allegations do not arise out of the referral. They were corruption allegations that were initially reported at IPID. Idac is not afraid to act. We can only act when we have sufficient evidence. And just because there's a complaint doesn't make a criminal charge. And that is why where we are at, Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi and General Masemola have not been arrested for those matters.
Honorable Ngola.
Thanks, Chair. No, Chair, I was not trying to interrupt the honorable member from Sashego Limpopo. I was just indicating so that after he's done, you note me. I just want to get to one thing. Maybe the Advocate Johnson must take us to where does Idac derive the arresting powers? Which law do we give them the arresting powers?
Honorable
Thank you.
Sangoni.
Chair, I want to call a point of order. You see, Honorable Malema and Honorable Ngola have been away from the Idac committee so long, they've forgotten what a clarity-seeking question is. So they are starting new questions, and we need to wait until the evidence is led, then they come back and they ask their questions. Please, Chairperson.
Okay. The part that says they have been away, they might have forgotten. I disagree with it. I sustain the latter part that says. But look, questions that emanate from the line of questioning by the evidence leader are acceptable. Yeah. Can we proceed in that way? If a question emanates from the line of questioning, I don't know the question about the mandate of Idac, if it is related to what the SC was leading now. Yeah. May we proceed?
Chair, can you rule that my questions were not out of order? Being away after you have apologized doesn't mean you have stayed away from struggle. I'm here.
Look, the away part does not belong here.
But my questions were in line with what the SC was asking.
I agree with that,
Thank you.
with that part. That's why I say the part that both of you were away, let's not belabor it. SC, may we proceed?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. So the four other cases being investigated, they arise from the same Section 27 referral by Adams.
Sorry, Honorable Chair. I don't know if it looks like Honorable Ngola is still unhappy, but maybe if he, without me going into the detail, if Honorable Ngola will go and read Section 29A, subsection 1 and its various subsections of the National Prosecuting Authority Act, as well as the Act as amended in 2024, to deal with the question that he raised. Thank you, Chair.
You will come and explain that later when he is asking you. Now let's go to the SC.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Advocate Johnson, yeah, I asked for you to confirm that the 4 pending cases being investigated, they arise from the same Section 27 referral by Mr. Adams.
That is correct, Honorable Chair.
And I know you wouldn't want to mention names, but at least you can tell us these 4 other matters pending and being investigated, do they involve the same or all or some of the 7 accused in the Khumalo matter, including Lieutenant General Khumalo?
I'm not going to go against my own principle that I espoused in this House. What I can say is those 4 matters relate to the crime intelligence environment and allegations of criminality in that environment.
Better be careful, your husband is also in that environment.
And if my husband does wrong, Honorable Chair and members, I think, and to be fair, let's deal with the question. There are consequences. One of the things I have always stood by, I'm not prepared to. He's an amazing husband, that's an aside. I'm not prepared to compromise my integrity or oath of office, not even for the husband, not at all.
So let's just deal with, you mentioned that you don't know, you haven't met Mr. Adams. You mentioned in your statement, though, that I'm looking at paragraph 44, that when he approached Idac, he had already gone twice to the SAPS in the Western Cape and Gauteng provinces. We had open cases. And then you say, somewhat miraculously, these cases had disappeared. Now, do you have first-hand knowledge of this, or are you just conveying information that came to your knowledge at some point?
So, Chair, this came to my knowledge through my own investigators who had taken the Section 27 referral affidavit from Mr. Adams. So part of what he indicates is that when he received information, which he alleges was pushed under his door, which is part of the affidavit, that he opened cases in the Western Cape. He later opened cases in Gauteng. Nothing came of either or, and these matters then were referred to Idac. However, what Idac did find on the first arrest, the first matter,
Yeah, if you can conclude your answer.
is it okay, Honorable Skosana?
Conclude your answer, Advocate Johnson, and
So,
then
I-
Honorable Skosana will be given an opportunity.
Honorable Chair, I'm not sure if it is appropriate to raise. I know, I said, I do not know Mr. Adams. I've never met Mr. Adams. I've not spoken to him, but I have seen him on television. And it is somewhat of a challenge for me, ethically. We are discussing a criminal matter in which Mr. Adams is a complainant, and I do see that he is sitting in the House. What can happen later during a criminal trial, accused are allowed to say that their matter was unduly influenced by his presence. I'm merely raising it, and for the Chair and House to decide how you deal with it.
You don't know him, but you see him.
No, not knowing a person is one thing. I've seen his face on television.
Oh, okay. The face you see is the face you saw.
I wouldn't know whether it's a kilogram heavier or lighter, but yes, it's similar.
Okay. SC, how do you deal with that matter?
With Mr. Adams being in the house or in the room. I think we need to be consistent in the same way that we've dealt with some other honorable members
Okay.
remaining in the house, and despite being complainants in cases. I don't think, Advocate Johnson, there'd be any prejudice. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe getting a fright that you're seeing him here today. But apart from that, there's no prejudice to the case. He's a complainant in a matter.
To be clear, Honorable Chair, I didn't talk of prejudice to the state's case. We also protect the rights of accused persons, and I do not want accused to raise later on that certain details were discussed and the complainant thereof sat in a house where they didn't have representation and or were not present. I merely raised that ethical issue.
Well, you can go outside now, Ms. Johnson, and look at it on TV. Is it going to make any difference?
You can take Honorable Connor Barnett with you.
Honorable Malim.
Just to put it on record that Adams is not a member of this committee. He's a member of parliament. And like any other member of parliament, his rights are not withdrawn. He can attend any committee as a member of parliament. So this is a completely different space. Hence, before she took an oath, you have had to remind her that certain things that are done here may not even be used anywhere else outside this place. So it's for Adam's personal conscience that he left, which for me is good, but it should be put clear that he's not a member of our committee, he's a member of parliament, and it doesn't influence anything when it comes to how decisions are going to be made here. Thanks.
Honorable Skosana.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make a follow-up question about the issue of Honorable Member Adams. That did Mr. Adams bring up a classified document in his report? If so, are you authorized to investigate a classified intelligence, and which specific section allows you to do so? Because according to the law, only the Inspector General of the Intelligence Office has the authority to investigate such matters.
Is that question based on the evidence that the SC is leading?
Yes.
Okay. Number one is that, yes, it's true that Mr. Adams is not a member of this committee. And number two is that he is not leaving the proceedings because it is a decision of the chair that he must leave. And number three, when questions are put to you, advocate, and in your conscience you have an understanding that it has an element to prejudice any person, you can always raise that to say, I believe that there is an element of prejudice in this question, and these are the reasons that I advance. Yeah, but when he left here, it's out of his own conscience. It's not because we have taken a decision that he must leave. Honorable Sangwen.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And I mean, I know I don't have to, but I concur with your summary as well as what Honorable Malema had raised. Honorable Chair, I'm really not trying to be difficult, and I'm appealing to members. Just in terms of the process and procedure we had established, on this issue of the follow-up, the clarity-seeking questions. The questions that members are raising are excellent questions. They are very important. It's just that they're not for right now, including the question that Honorable Skosana raised. Let me tell you why I'm saying, Chair. In our very first meeting, I remember I attempted to do what the member was doing, right? I was interested in a point, wanted to pursue it. Honorable Malema corrected us, even made an example that you asked things like, no, is it this one? Who do you mean exactly? I did not hear that word, So if we could please maintain that, Chair, then when members have their time to ask questions, then any and every issue that they want to interrogate, they can do it at that point. I'm appealing, Chair. Otherwise, we won't finish leading the evidence. Thank you, Chair.
You talk about questions asked out of impatience. Okay. Honorable members, and I asked that question, Honorable Skosana, because I believe it's a question that can still be responded to later. But if you strongly feel that it must be answered now, I can concede to that.
Chair, I wanted clarity. It's no longer a question time for me. Can you please answer now? Because we're on that matter of Adams about what Advance brought. So I just wanted to find out about
What
that.
is the clarity you seek? No, yes. What is the clarity you seek?
Must I repeat the question again?
Yeah, the clarity seeking question.
So must I repeat it again? Whether advocate, true you share. You want me to repeat myself?
Honorable Skosana, I did hear you.
Thank you.
May I proceed, Chair? I'm going to answer without going into a whole debate, and I accept, Honorable Member, you will come back with more questions when it is your turn. Safe to say, what the ID herself received was a Section 28 application based on a Section 27 referral. The investigators got an affidavit from Mr. Adams. But let's just say the ID was given a document purported to be classified. The ID is in possession of top secret clearance that therefore will allow me to look at those documents. However, before we do that, even with the SSA matters, Honorable Member, what we tend to do to err on the side of caution, we would indicate to the person giving us a document, can you rather declassify before you give us? But I did not have sight to any classified document. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
SC, we have 4 minutes left before the next break.
You want me to proceed, Honourable Chair?
If you are generous enough, you may say we break. And if you feel we can still do something in 4 minutes, you can say we're a nation at work for a better life for all.
Well, we're dealing with this important matter now, so it might be convenient to break at this point and to resume after lunch.
Honorable members, we are breaking, we are coming back at 14 hours.